There has been so much discussion earlier that really spoke to how much digital transformation and technology can really be the vehicle to help us take us in that future that we want to get into. So I think this is going to be an absolutely essential session for all of us who are looking to see how we can build competitive advantage. So I'm very pleased that Peter and I were able to organize this session and that we were able to have someone as renowned as Dan Mapes, who was willing to share of his time with us. So I will begin the session by introducing our moderator very briefly. Denyse White is, in fact, someone I knew from a very long time ago in my life in the public service. Denyse is now the Deputy Chief Digital Officer at the Ministry of Transformation, of Digital Transformation here in Trinidad and Tobago. So, a very clear indication that the country is headed in a particular direction. So, Denyse, I am happy to hand over the session into your hands to introduce our speaker briefly and our two panelists.
Thanks very much, Kamla, and thanks to this organization for allowing us to participate this afternoon. I'm representing the newly formed Ministry of Digital Transformation. And I say newly formed, we were part of the Ministry of Public Administration before, and the government recognizing the importance of digital transformation and technology to our developmental landscape has made this a focal point for us. So my duties this afternoon are brief. We have a 45-minute session ahead of us, and it's really to talk about digitization and digital transformation. We have a main presenter, Mr. Dan Mapes, who is a seasoned entrepreneur, investor, and inventor who sits at that intersection of internet technology and entertainment. And what I noted in his brief write-up is that he's had a lot of worldwide influence working with a lot of international agencies and advising international governments. So he's what I would really term as a global citizen. We also have as our panelists, Mr. Frederico Baumhardt, who is, and this really resonated with me, a passionate people-focused leader who is going to share with us some of his perspectives on how technology and business put people onto that global stage from both the perspective of the MNCs as well as startups. And we also have Ms. Carmel Haynes, who represents the Barbados Association for Global Business. And she will bring her stakeholder perspectives on how they use technology to engage in commercial activity to participate in the global landscape. So I will pass over to Mr. Dan Mapes and really look forward to what he has to share with us in terms of digitization and digital transformation. Mr. Mapes?
Thanks so much. That was wonderful. Maybe I'll share some screens here. Let me know, can you see that okay? A little bit about Versus. Is that coming up on the screen for everybody?
Yes, it is.
Good, good, good. Okay, so I'm the founder and president of Versus Technologies Incorporated in Los Angeles. We have offices in Europe and Asia. We're currently working with the European Commission on a Europe-wide drone management system using these technologies. And really what we're doing here today is sharing with you what is about to hit our economies and our societies as the current internet and World Wide Web transform themselves into the next generation of the spatial web. And what will that mean as it relates to the great wealth transfer and how we're going to manage our economies and our currencies and everything else. So it's really exciting. I'm really happy to be here today and share with you some of the work that's taking place, and hope to hear back from you, all your thoughts on how this might be both a positive and potentially a negative thing in our societies, and how we take advantage of the positives and kind of ameliorate or manage the negatives. Okay, so really what we're talking about here is a fundamental change in the way the World Wide Web works. The World Wide Web only began 25 years ago, but already it's transformed our e-commerce world, even the way people are learning and socializing with things like Facebook, searching for information with Google. So it really is affecting our work lives, our social lives. Everybody's Zooming now for work. So we're seeing the impact on society, but this has just been a little bit of a warm-up. What's about to happen is 100 times more impactful. And we call it the spatial web. And really what it's doing is it's bringing artificial intelligence to everybody on the web. And we don't really know what that's going to do, but it's certainly going to add a level of capability to every business and even to every individual as it comes along. So it's going to have massive impacts, and that's what we're going to talk about today. This isn't just me saying this, by the way. This is Deloitte and Accenture and all the other top management consulting firms. Deloitte has said this is the next era of computing. We're now seeing the spatial web unfold, which will eliminate the boundary between what we've been calling digital content behind our screens and the physical world around us. Now the information is escaping the screen and entering right embedded into the world around us. So with a pair of AR glasses in the future, or even with your smartphone, you can actually query the world, and it actually shows you exactly what's happening. It could be a factory, it could be a hospital, it could be an entire smart city. We can't build smart cities without the spatial web, because what the spatial web enables, just like the World Wide Web, allowed every website to talk to every other website. The spatial web allows every digital technology, like a drone or a car or a digital twin of a hospital or a factory. Now they can all have one shared protocol that they all can communicate on. And that's how we kind of make a smart city, ultimately a smart country, finally a smart world. And that obviously impacts the way our money flows around the world, where our investments are going. We're already seeing the role of NFTs. We're already seeing we're seeing some of the major cryptocurrencies crossing the $1 trillion line. So this is a really a major sea change in how we're going to manage our wealth. We've got a younger generation. That's what the Great Wealth Transfer is all about. And they're very savvy when it comes to the internet and cryptocurrencies and virtual worlds and all these things. So this will give you a good understanding of what's about to hit us over this next 2 decades. I wrote a good book called The Spatial Web. It became a bestseller. It might be handy for you if you want to know a little more deeply about this stuff after this presentation. It'll give you a good overview of everything. And it walks you through what's about to happen and how it can be good and what are some of the negatives we have to prepare for. So the spatial web has some very big impacts. Some of them are very good, and some of them are negative. The spatial web can solve problems we've never been able to solve. We're working right now with the World Bank on new climate accounting models. Right now, we don't have a really good accurate carbon accounting. So even though we do the Paris Accords or now the COP26 Scotland Accords, we haven't really had a way of really monitoring them well. The spatial web enables that because it's slowly making a digital twin of the entire planet and really understands how the carbon is being released and who's releasing it and that kind of thing. The other thing, though, that a spatial AI web that incorporates AI is going to do is it's going to cause massive job losses. Probably half the jobs we currently have will be gone between 2030 and 2035. That's a massive social disruption, and we've got to address that and prepare for it. But at the same time, the spatial web even helps solve that, because it turns out these three-dimensional kind of worlds that we're stepping into, you've probably heard the word metaverse. These metaverses are absolutely fantastic for training people and learning things rapidly. In our test with Amazon in the United States, we saw training times go down for new hires going into their to work in their big logistics systems, go from 2.5 days down to 30 minutes. So this is a high learning environment. People can actually learn a lot in these things rapidly. So we can train people for new jobs that will be occurring in the digital environments. So really, This is just part of the ongoing evolution. The first era of humanity's existence was mainly around genetic evolution on the planet. Then for the last 10,000 years, we've got something called mimetic evolution. That's the evolution of our culture, our ideas, things like mathematics, language. But now we're entering a new era. It's a new kind of evolution. It's the mixture of genetic algorithms with mimetic programming. So we're actually, our digital technologies are actually starting to turn into organisms. They actually learn and grow. Before, when we wrote a piece of software, it was like a digital machine. You put this in, you got that out. But in the future, in this next 20 years, AI is learning while it's going. It's rewriting itself. So it's evolving. It's like a tree or an animal that can learn behaviors. And so the AI itself is kind of becoming organic, and we call it biomimicry or biomimetic. And so this is going to be a radical change in the way that humans interact with digital technologies. So this mimetic evolution, here you can kind of see the run we've had for the last 10,000 years. In 10,000 years since the last ice age, we went from the Stone Age through the agricultural age, through the industrial age, into kind of an early digital age. And now we're about to build a whole new economy. There's mass production, capital comes along with mass production. And so mass production plus capital is the world of the industrial age. As soon as you have mass production, you need risk capital because you have to get all the resources together in the beginning. But now we're moving into a digital age, and we're making things out of bits, out of photons and electrons. And so it's going to change the whole banking model because we don't really need as much risk capital. So, and yet we can make tremendous amounts of money. As you've seen, some of these computer games are worth billions of dollars. I mean, Epic has a game called Fortnite. It has 350 million users in it, and they're worth billions of dollars, and it's all just made out of digital bits. And yet they have recurring revenue every month. Everybody comes. And so some of these new businesses, you can start to see what the digital age businesses will be like. They're very different than the industrial age. So you could argue that COVID is almost kind of acting almost like a chapter marker. It's the kind of the end of the industrial age, the beginning of the real digital age of where the digital age becomes the dominant economy. Before, the digital technologies were serving the industrial age economy, but now they're becoming the economy. In a very similar way, during the agricultural age, when the first machines came in, they were there to serve the agricultural age, and then they became the new economy, General Motors and all these big corporations. Boeing and all the rest of them. We're seeing this now with the digital age as well. It's going to change the way we invest. It's going to change the way we make money. It's going to the way we spend it. It's even going to change the kind of money we use, as we can see with the movement, particularly in the younger generation, really getting into NFTs and buying Ethereum and Bitcoin and other kinds of things like that. And so here we can see, even the computers, the early computers were there really to help just accelerate mass production. But now in 1970, we figured out how to wire all the computers together and in a way with no central computer. And we discovered something by accident called decentralization. And when you decentralize something, that means there's no central computer that you have to check in with and ask IBM, can I join the network? You can just, it's an open protocol, TCP/IP run by IEEE. And it's like the electric grid. It's published. So anybody anywhere in the world can make a vacuum cleaner, a coffee pot, and know that you can plug it into the electric grid and it'll work. Well, now we've got protocols for the computer network. Anybody can buy a smartphone and it already works perfectly with the internet. And so we discovered from decentralization, when you take away that central friction point, then you get explosive growth. We went from 4 computers in 1970. We're at 40 billion computers plugged into the internet today. We're about to plug 500 billion IoT devices in to the internet by the end of the 2020s. It's just a massive engineering undertaking. And then all we have to do to leverage that is make the software better. And suddenly the whole network serves everybody better than we've ever had before. So we call that the foundations of an exponential biomimetic economy. It's a different kind of economy. The industrial economy doesn't go away, just like we still have an agricultural economy, but it's not dominant anymore. There's this new dominant economy, which is a digital economy. So there's your 4 original computers. Here we are today, 40 billion. Look at that thing. Looks like a global brain. And that's what people are thinking at. It really, we call it the singularity, when artificial intelligence equals or surpasses the level of human intelligence. And it's a date that's argued about. It's somewhere between 2030 and 2050, but that's coming pretty fast. And it's going to open up capabilities we've never had before. It'll probably cure every cancer we've ever had. It'll change healthcare. Lifespans may increase from currently around 80 years to maybe 150 years. So really radical changes are coming. Here's the kind of cool thing too. This is a chart showing the difference between linear growth in the industrial age and exponential growth in the digital age. You can see in the beginning, they kind of look similar. So it's a little deceptive. But then what happens is 1, 2, 4, 8 isn't that terribly different than 1, 2, 3, 4, but then it goes from 8 to 16 instead of 4 to 5, 32, 64, and it just starts to go straight up. So you get massive amounts of change in short periods of time. And that's really what the digital world provides. That's how we got from 4 computers to 40 billion computers in 50 years. Hold on here. Let's see why we're not getting out of those. There we go. Hold on. And here you can see in every area it's happening, whether it's, we went from 10 web pages to 10 billion web pages. We went from no tweets to 250 billion tweets a year. I mean, it's just the nature of the digital world. It goes exponential. And it changes everything when it does that. And now, of course, we're not just going to do social media. We're going to deliver education. Well, what's that mean? Well, that means we can give everybody in the world access to a Harvard or Oxford level education, probably for free, because every economist knows when you start to deliver 1 billion units of a digital service, the marginal cost to add 1 more person is nearly 0. Well, wow, that means we can deliver pretty much for free, high quality education to every human being on the planet, lifelong. And so here we see the 3 big protocols. 1970, TCP/IP enabled the physical layer of the internet, the machines to all be linked together, and that enabled email. 1995, HTTP created web pages, and now we went from 10 web pages to 10 billion web pages. So web pages now are worth probably, I think, last count I looked, it was over $10 trillion in public market capitalization. Google, Facebook, Amazon, all the rest. And now we have HSTP, the hyperspace transaction protocol, which will probably be 100 times larger than the World Wide Web. It's just because we're going to digitize our cities now. We're going to digitize our ports, our airports, everything. Well, there's huge investment opportunities there. I mean, right now, we never had trillion-dollar corporations until recently, and now we have a whole bunch of them because of the World Wide Web. Now we're going to have 10 trillion and $100 trillion companies in the spatial web, because now we're finally, we're networking everything in our world, every car, every drone, we've got AI everywhere. It's a remarkable, we're on the front edge of science fiction here. Again, this is there's the former vice chairman of Deloitte, Jay Samit. He said the impact of this new spatial web will dwarf that of the internet and change how we live, work, and thrive. And Jay joined our board, and we're full partners with Deloitte. So that just gives you a flavor of how serious these big management consulting firms are taking this. Every major corporation, and we're working with major top global 500 corporations right now, big car companies in Europe and the US, big retailers in Europe and the US, major companies that you all know, big brands, they're all figuring out, oh my gosh, we have to spatialize. And some of them are already naming chief metaverse officers because they know they're going to do their commerce in the metaverse. Children today playing in Fortnite, they'd rather buy a pair of digital sneakers than physical sneakers because they hang out with all their friends in the digital world and they want to wear cool digital clothing and digital sneakers. I mean, Gucci is now selling $4,000 digital purses. It's a digital purse. They sell it for $4,000. A woman just sold a house the other day, a digital house for $500,000. This is a different economy, guys. and new investment opportunities, probably new ways of wealth management, new kinds of family offices. These are things we're all going to, you guys have the expertise. We're not domain experts in your area, but I'm just sharing with you what's about to hit you. This is spreading all over the surface of the planet rapidly. What HSTP then does is connects everything. And so pretty much every car is connected. Now you really get full smart cities, every plane. So the AIs can help to manage things and make things run more smoothly. Of course, we have some problems with our current web. Everything is hacked. Everything you do is tracked. You can't tell what's real and what's fake. So we had to correct those things before we connect everything together. Otherwise, we'd create a mess. So we were able to get rid of the hacking through using of blockchains. We get rid of the tracking through doing something called self-sovereign identity. And there's no identity layer at the current web, so you have to log in everywhere. But and when you walk out in the world, you have self-sovereign identity. You don't have to log in. You can walk in any store, buy things, and walk out. So we created, the new web has self-sovereign identity. And then AI everywhere provides contextual understanding, so you can immediately identify fake news or fake information, and you can give things a validity score. And so the other thing that's happening is, in addition to all this digitization, is we're moving from 2D to 3D. So the world's messy and complex in 3 dimensions. Our data is very simplified on spreadsheets and things like that in 2 dimensions. But now with cameras and everything, we can actually not only create a 3D copy of our world, but we can update it in real time with new data. So you're actually kind of turn the whole world slowly over the next 20 years into a giant video game that we're all playing. And there's the old web. Things are nicely neat in rows. And the new web, as you can see on the right there, you can actually see exactly where things are. You're not looking on a screen and then looking over at the world and trying to find it. The information is now embedded in the world. Well, that makes things run a whole lot faster, because an AI can tell you, oh, you want to go there? Just follow this yellow line on the floor here, and it'll take you right to where you're looking for. The other thing is AI is advancing rapidly. When I was doing my PhD in AI at UC Berkeley back in the 80s, people would go, well, AI will never be there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. And so people would ask me, well, what do you think? What's the test of it? Well, you can make a chess computer, but you can never beat a grandmaster. That's something that's unique. Well, of course, Deep Blue beat a grandmaster, Garry Kasparov, in 23 years ago in 1997. Well, AI hasn't slowed down since then. It's rocking and rolling. It's still growing fast. So here we can see the movie Jarvis. This is what's coming. AI will be like Jarvis. It'll be like a personal assistant. The thing they got right in the movie of Iron Man was the quality of the help that an AI could give a human being. What they got wrong is the AI is all software. Once you make one Jarvis, you can just say, Jarvis, make 8 billion copies of yourself. Give everybody a digital personal assistant with full AI. An 8-year-old girl in Kenya will have more AI at her fingertips in 8 years than the largest corporation has today. I don't know what that's going to do, but it's going to change the world, I'll tell you that. So we call that networked augmented intelligence, because it's the AI in partnership with the human. They're not leaving us behind. They're helping us evolve as well, evolve our understanding. If we go back to the Stone Age, which is only 8,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, and we bring anybody forward, they're going, wow, you guys are living in a science fiction world, airplanes, electric lights, all that stuff. Well, that's what's about to happen. We're in 2100, we'll look back to today and go like, oh my God, those poor people, they were living in the Stone Age. They died before the age of 100. Can you imagine how pathetic? They were still teenagers. Probably lifespans will increase to 150, 200, maybe even 300 years in the next 100 or so years. So we're really, we're about to take the next big leap. We're leaving the industrial age. We're moving into this new digital age. So we call that the augmented world game, because now we can kind of gamify the world. People think games are something that you play, but actually at theoretical levels at the university, game theory is a really great understanding of human behavior. And we can apply game theory to helping us manage our planet. That'll help us get control of our climate problems, supply chains that you're looking at, make our economies run more efficiently and create more abundance. Right now, our global economy is about 84 trillion. We're estimating that in 2045, our global economy will probably be $800 trillion a year. You can already see it with the way these digital economies are starting to grow so fast. And we'll have smart everything. Smart cities, which require smart grids, smart homes, smart cars, everything's all woven together. And you start to wire all that up, everything becomes slowly, again, year by year. Tesla says there's 5 levels to full autonomous vehicles, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do the same thing for our smart cities and smart worlds, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're level 1 right now. We're starting to make a few things, but when they all start to wire together, they really do create an overall global smart world. And the AIs can then help us automate things and run things properly in the background, let us make the key decisions, but not really do the drudgery work. And so what's AI good for? Well, a little bit of everything, as you guys can see: banking, transport, retail, politics, insurance, cybersecurity, smart homes. This is what AI is hitting us. And the spatial web enables AI to spread to every node on the network. I mean, that's the thing. All those 40 billion computers, which will soon be 100 billion computers and 500 million IoT devices, well, they're all endowed with artificial intelligence. Wow. I mean, our science fiction movies we're going to look at our science fiction movies in 50 years and go like, no, they weren't radical enough. It was bigger and wilder than that. And of course, we've got native new currencies. We're going to have we're going to have central bank digital currencies. We're going to have cyber currencies, these cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum and others. And they move friction-free across these kinds of networks. And then we take a look at the human needs pyramid from Abraham Maslow, the famous psychologist. So every level here, from shelter, from housing, the way we do housing, the way we do our finances, the way we do our socializing, all the way up to the top through new kinds of knowledge and understanding, the way we educate ourselves, all these kinds of things. Every one of these areas is going to be revolutionized. We just ordered a 3D house printer. We're going to do an experimental experimental house in Los Angeles in the April-May timeframe. The house will be about 3,000 square feet, and the house will cost to build $3,000. And it's beautiful. And so strange things are afoot. Here's a whole bunch of companies that are addressing each area of these needs, so physiological needs and safety and security needs, and relationship needs, esteem needs, self-actualization. So all kinds of new companies are going to explode onto the scene at every level. New ways of redefining housing and security and safety and finance and everything else. You guys are seeing it in your industry as well, in the finance sectors, but DeFi is coming in, decentralized finance. FinTech is already here, but DeFi is coming on right behind it very strongly. Relationships, all the way up. So there's no area of our lives that's not going to be impacted by this stuff. World Economic Forum 2 years ago, or I guess a year and a half ago, when last big one was held at Davos, estimates that the digital transformation for this period from between 25 and 2030 will be a $100 trillion business opportunity to be part of it. And so here we are. Here's city Berlin and Amsterdam. All these cities are making digital copies of themselves. There's a bunch of companies making digital twins of the entire planet. Then you merge the digital with the physical. So now you walk into a building, but you can actually see into the building and understand where something is or what something costs or some kind of factory model that has to be built. So the digital and the physical merging is kind of the essence of what we're talking about here. And so once you get this merging happen, then you can automate operations because you have an intelligent real-time digital twin of your factory factory, of your hospital, of your city, whatever. And the AIs can help to automate the interactions and transactions between the humans and the machines and the objects. And that helps us with the movement of people and goods, contracts between parties, settlement and payments. So obviously it's going to impact the whole financial world really heavily. We're already seeing in some of the early tests, we install the Spatial Web into businesses, and immediately they cut their overheads by 30, 35%. I mean, 5% would be amazing. No, 30, 35, 40, 50%. Radical, completely transforms their business. And you can't afford not to use it. It's free to use because the Spatial Web is saving you so much money when you're using it that the cost to use it is a fraction of what you're saving. So you can't afford not to install it. So it'll spread like wildfire around the world. And when you talk about, people talk about smart cities, but they don't really know what it means. What it really means is you've got these different layers of information that are right now siloed and separate from each other. But in our bodies, our systems are all fully integrated. And so in the new smart city world, they become a little bit more like organisms. So the transportation systems are linked to the energy systems, are linked to the communication systems. And that's how you get a smart city. And obviously, there you take a look how, as we start with smart cities, then we move to smart nations, and then finally they all network together and create a smart world. There you can see some of the systems that will all be starting to work together in a beautiful, interactive way. Civil services, critical infrastructure. We're working with the UN right now on critical infrastructure inventories, digital identities. How do we do all this and ensure personal privacy and honor GDPR? Land management, a natural thing for half the planet. They don't have decent land management systems. Mobility, in the future, an ambulance won't pick you up in a car. A drone ambulance will pick you up and fly you directly to the hospital, and the bed is being prepared for you, and the nurses are waiting for you because everything is connected, and so they know exactly what your problems are as you're being flown into the hospital. Safety and security, of course, supply chains. We're seeing huge problems right now in supply chains. All that goes away when you have everything interconnected. And of course, sustainability is the big thing. We're addressing in COP26, but we haven't, one of the reasons we're having such a problem with sustainability is we don't have a really good way of measuring or using econometrics properly. If you can't measure things, then you can't apply incentives and disincentives, which is the essence of econometrics. So now that will be handled as well. So we can actually now measure right from the appliance to the house to the neighborhood and get the carbon footprint for your house, your neighborhood, your city, your factory, whatever. And then you can apply incentives and disincentives to that. Full supply chains, we see everything. Oh, this car has got bad brakes, and maybe it's a particular model from BMW or Volvo or somebody. And in the past, they would have to do a recall of every BMW 3 Series. But now they might be able to identify, that was a bad batch of steel, and only 3,300 cars in Europe have that problem, instead of having to recall 30,000 cars. So you can kind of see where all this stuff starts to go. And at the end of the day, you get something that looks like this: a smart city where everything is fully integrated, from the logistics through to the retail, through the emergency systems, autonomous vehicles. It just becomes like a city organism, and it cannot actually really turn around and serve the people with better services at a better affordable price. And everybody's happier at that point, because looks like, according to the recent studies, about 70% of all humanity is going to live in cities by 2040, 2045. And you wire it all up, and the cities start to interact with each other, and the ports, and you got the ports in Shanghai talking to the ports in Rotterdam, and you got the factories talking to the stores, factories in China talking to the stores in Europe. And now you really can optimize things. So you link the world's resources, supply chains, governments with AI to manage the economies, the environment, and civilization. And now you really can address the sustainability goals that the UN has identified. We haven't really had a good handle. They're nice ideas, but now we can actually instantiate them as really models that we can work to address and optimize toward. So anyway, that's kind of a quick look at it. Obviously, we've got to do a lot of skill training. Many old skills are not going to be needed. Robots and AIs will take over those jobs, so we've got to retrain people. And we can do that using a gamified education, which lets you learn things in 1/10 the time. And here you can kind of see immersive training is so much faster. Like I said, training times are dropping from 2.5 days to 30 minutes. Personal AI for everyone, that helps a lot with the training and the mentoring. Obviously, no kinds of new opportunities for entrepreneurs in this new digital landscape. And millennials are already built for it, right? All the younger people, they've been playing computer games their whole life. So they're kind of ready for a gamified world. So we're going to see corporate skills training systems, and whether it's building new skills, but then ultimately it's really helping people to build entrepreneurial environments in these new economies. I think we'll see many, many new corporations begin, just like our corporation began. We began 3.5 years ago with this company, and we're going public in January. And the company's already worth over $100 million and headed toward $1 billion really fast. So that's remarkable, from the whiteboard to that radical growth. We're going to see that over and over and even faster. Some of the new computer games that have just popped up, they're going from 0 to $1 billion valuations in 18 months. Anyway, that's a quick look at the digital landscape that we see coming in. We're helping to bring it in, and so we're really conversant with the issues, and happy to answer any questions or field any thoughts anyone has. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan. That was, mind blown, because there's so much we think about when we move from that whole concept of digitization to digital transformation, which is absolutely where this has gone. Let me ask our two panelists. So I know there may be a lot of questions coming forward from Dan's presentation, but let me ask our two panelists just to give us a little brief overview on their topic. Let me start with Mr. Baumhardt.
Wow, fantastic presentation. Hard to argue with, I think, all of the facts, and my brain is still spinning.
Thanks, Frederico.
Yeah, I would, however...
I'm in the middle of it all, and my brain's spinning every month to watch all the changes.
Can imagine. So I for the panel's benefit, I would try to put two things to make what you've just seen at the 50,000-foot level a little bit more actionable. So in terms of what to think about from a family office perspective of investment, or what to think about from a perspective of wealth transfer in the Caribbean, the actionable window that you've got between IT salesperson like me, I was 15 years at Microsoft using all the jargons to get you to convince you to spend some money that you maybe shouldn't, is as follows. There's a simple secret. It's not transformation unless you're adding a zero to something or taking a zero away. That's evolution. So the first thing that I would say is, if you're looking at transforming the model and you can't do something 10 times faster, or if you can't do something 10 times cheaper, or you can't do something 10 times better, then it's just a small evolution. You're basically changing the horse's speed a little bit. You're not building the aircraft. So that's the first thing that you have to think about when you're doing digital transformation, is to think about, do I have that 10x factor or more? If you're not eliminating friction from the channel, if you're not doing something a little bit easier, if you're doing it a little bit easier, that's different. The Kodak guys didn't want to eliminate the friction too much of their photochemical machines. And they talked about having billions of dollars worth of hardware invested all over the world, that from Piccadilly Circus to San Francisco, you could all of a sudden go to a tourist location and grab in 1 hour, imagine this, 1 hour, you could grab your film and turn that into a picture. The guys like Dan would come in and say, you guys are in the wrong business. And they would point out the fact that you're actually in the business of preserving people's memories, not in the photochemical business. And that is the crux of the opportunity of digital transformation. So if you're thinking about a wealth transfer situation, if you're thinking about now a changing of the guard, there is an interplay that's very complex between the previous generation, who is basically saying, hang on a second, just because we can do something, should we? And the new generation that has effectively grown up without limits. So effective digital transformation is actually some very old school conversations that don't have very digital kind of next finish. All of a sudden, our company is 10 times more profitable. There are actually some real human discussions that say, just because we can do X, should we do X? People always point out the Kodak example, but they forget to actually point out that Kodak invented digital photography. And in a boardroom, a board of corporate governance decided that it was best not to do digital photography because of the impact on the underlying core business. So there are a bunch of conversations, and the value is in the discussion of should we transform, and is the quantum and the risk to our existing incumbent business model sufficient? I think those would be my observations on what Dan's already very illustriously said.
I completely concur with Frederico too. Well said, Frederico. Thank you. And then, by the way, we partnered with Microsoft to win the. There were 80 as an example, the European Union was looking at what was happening in the Syrian war, and they realized that some of the militaries were buying buying drones from China and hooking explosives to them and flying them in and blowing up buildings, and say, oh my God, you know, we're gonna have drones in our skies from Amazon and FedEx and DHL and all that stuff. How do we manage this thing? And so they put out a call for papers, and they set up five smart city projects around Europe, and 80 consortiums applied to solve the problem. And our technology combined with Microsoft's Azure backend, we beat out everybody to deliver that, because we treated all of Europe as if it were one giant holographic, almost computer game. So we can give every drone an ID, register them the way cars are registered, and then we can actually define through blockchains and smart contracts how high they're allowed to fly. We can design drone highways they have to follow so they don't go near airports. But the AI actually is also in the system. So even if it's following a drone highway, if it sees a crowd of people, it can route around them as well. If it's carrying a payload, it doesn't want to fly over them in case there's a problem, it could crash onto the crowd. So even the AI can even override the smart contract and protect the people in the process. So just an indication of the kinds of solutions that come when these new things come in. That was a partnership between Microsoft and my company.
All right, great. So let me bring Ms. Hayes into the conversation now from BIBA in Barbados.
Hi, thanks, Denyse, so much. I feel perhaps I'm on the wrong panel. I feel Dan and Frederico are already in the future, but I'm just going to speak. I was asked to give an overview of what Barbados is doing in terms of our digitalization process. And I would say that, we have quite a bit further to come to get to that point, but since 2018, the government of Barbados has gone on record with an express desire to digitize this island and its economy. So a raft of new initiatives were announced to form the economic planks for growth and development, including facilitating online payments for a wide range of government activities and services, a commitment to decentralized finance, as Dan alluded to, including the use of blockchain technologies to boost foreign reserves while providing new opportunities for Barbadians to build wealth, and strengthening our cybersecurity environment, both for the protection of citizens and enhancing the island's attractiveness as a global business domicile. And so that's pretty much where BIBA comes in. Like the Cayman Islands, we are a jurisdiction of choice for global businesses who look to Barbados as a solution from where they can conduct business with the rest of the world. And so our government has been very clear that we really need to accelerate how quickly we do processing of payments, et cetera, in order to decrease the amount of man hours lost by having to stand in lines and fulfill in-person transactions. This is being spearheaded by the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology, and they have what they've called a digital first mindset. And we feel, come at the right time, obviously with COVID, as both the public and private sectors grapple with how to continue to conduct business amid the physical distancing requirements and cycles of restricted movements engendered by the pandemic situation. So we've seen some wins, especially many of you would have heard of our Barbados Welcome Stamp visa, which we're able to our immigration department and our Tourism Management Inc. were able to collaborate to develop this welcome stamp visa to facilitate remote work for persons who wanted to be able to perhaps get away from all of the lockdowns and especially in those colder countries, so the restrictions, etc. We invited them to come to Barbados. And so the sort of turnaround time in which we were able to process the welcome stamp visa was really incredible versus what used to happen in terms of processing passports and work permits, etc. And because of that, the Immigration Department has developed systems that are actually being put into use for an extensive and ongoing digitization project, which will accelerate the processing of passports, work permits, and other applications for status. And as often quoted, albeit not entirely accurate, the interpretation of the Chinese symbol for crisis speaks to opportunity being present alongside danger. And we think the COVID-19 pandemic has been the perfect situation for this aphorism, as it has accelerated the digital transformation and cemented Barbados as one of the best places in the world in which to work remotely while enjoying a desirable quality of life. However, one of the things that Dan did spark me to speak about as well in his presentation, and one of our directors, Connie Smith, has actually posted within the chat a link to this article, is that beyond the physical world and beyond accelerating those sort of real world transactions, within the last week, Barbados has actually set forward as attempting to become the first sovereign nation with an embassy in the metaverse. And so within the last week, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade has signed an agreement with Decentraland, one of the largest and most popular crypto worlds, for the establishment of a digital embassy. Not surprisingly, this is being championed by His Excellency Gabriel Abed, the island's ambassador to the United Arab Emirates, probably one of the youngest ambassadors in our diplomatic corps. He's also the leader of one of the leaders in the digitalization of fiat currency globally. As a co-founder of the Barbados-based BIT, Ambassador Abed spearheaded the digitalization of the fiat currency of the 9-member Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. And he has said of this latest initiative that this is a way for Barbados to expand its diplomatic missions beyond the 18 it currently has. This allows us to open the door using technology diplomacy, and which then extends to our cultural diplomacy, the trade of art, music, and culture. And so I think that that's a good note on which to end on here. And I think that ties well back with what Dan and Frederico were referring to. Thank you.
Thanks so much. It ties up everything so nicely there. And I know we're at time, so I don't know if we have a couple of minutes just to take a question or two.
Yes, you do. You have at least about 18 minutes still.
Okay, all right, great, thanks. So if there are any questions from any of our attendees, you can either type it in the chat or you can raise your hand and I will see if we can unmute your mic so that you can ask any of the, either the presenters or the panelists, any of the burning questions that you would have.
Yes, I've actually got a question. Particularly, I'll target this at Dan and maybe the other panelists. Is in particular, we're talking about this enormous flow of funds. There's discussions of course, you know, a new financial system, crypto, but also as well, what I addressed is, of course, the new virtual global citizen. And you talked a lot about sort of the virtual family office, Dan. I'm just curious to understand what your thoughts would be on sort of the virtual sort of family office and how to serve ultra high net worth individuals. Number one, because you have a lot of these sort of personal sovereignty measures already implemented in the spatial web, how that would look for, say, the ultra high net worth of the family office in the transfer of their wealth and management of their wealth, and also as well the individuals that aren't ultra high net worth, but they still are managing their lifestyle and money that way.
Thanks, Peter. No, I think I'm calling in today actually from Barcelona, and I'll be in Rome in a few days. And I mean, this is the world we're living in now. You know, from Shanghai to Barbados to Cape Town. It does, you know, we're really all over the world, and the jets are just so incredible. You can jump on them, and they got the flatbeds now, and you wake up, you go to sleep, and wake up, and you're in another continent. It's a remarkable time. And then we've got you obviously got this background where wealth management has been built up over the last 100 years in particular into a very advanced, sophisticated solutions. And now we've got these new tools that are going to open up new kinds of wealth creation and wealth management. So it's probably going to be a hybrid of what we've been doing, and then experiments with the new, and then learning how they all fit together. And you know, so I know that we're seeing in the crypto economy. Just as an example, you know, a person in 2016 could have bought 5 Bitcoin for $300 each. That's $1,500. That's worth $300,000 today. You know, Bitcoin is just showing a steady 10% per month rise over the course of a decade. Obviously, it bounces around, but the trend line is pretty much more than doubling every a year. So you get 10x every 36 months on average, and that's how we went from 0 to $1 trillion. So we have to incorporate an understanding of these new financial structures, whether they're fintech or DeFi, and how they incorporate the cryptocurrencies, and then new investments in some of these new worlds that we would never have considered investing in the past. People are buying, you know, NFTs, and I just had meetings with the World Cup. I mean, these are just monster business opportunities. So I think it's really going to be an education process, an experimentation process, an education process, and it's going to be a partnership between existing wealth management models and some of the people coming in from this new crypto world, kind of learning how to shake hands and work with the existing world. And I think it's going to be tremendously exciting. We're going to see a massive amount of wealth creation here in this next 20-year run.
To that, I think I'd add, there's a couple of things to think about. That traditionally family offices and first generation founded businesses have had a great deal of expertise in whatever has generated the wealth. So real estate guys, a real estate family office that made their money in real estate knows a lot about real estate, and people who made their money in tech or meat or whatever, they know a lot about that industry. The interesting issue about these types of newer markets is that they negate that first mover, first industry experience advantage. So you tend to look at the experience of family offices that for 15 years said, no crypto, we don't do that. That's extreme risk. We won't go into Second Life. We won't go into these types of other places. Because remember, some of these ideas that are now new in the metaverses aren't new. Some of us are old enough now to have seen that this is the second or third attempt at the same type of viable model. So to family offices and to advisors, I would say, the conversation is going to be about being able to get that first mover advantage and getting that best digital land, getting that best digital real estate, getting into enough of a risk exposure, because that's what it means. You're going to need to expose yourself to a little bit of risk, because by definition, an NFT is a new frontier. By definition, a digital real estate or digital mall in the metaverse is a new frontier. You're going to be paying a premium to get there first. However, it is a speculative premium. It's not a simple conversation to say, hey, look, use the 90s as an example. NAFTA is coming. We should buy land at the border because it's going to go up in value, and it's obvious, and it's simple human dynamics. The technology world has always got that vaporware thing where a family office might not want to put in $100 million, $50 million, $30 million into an initial, let's call it Series A or seed investment in something on the digital frontier because of the high vapor to doesn't happen type ratio. So my advice would be to spend a little bit of time with getting the classical accountancy and value-driven models to actually take a serious look, not a dismissive look that says, we looked at it and it's all brand new, but knowing that Bitcoin happened, knowing that these other types of things happen, get the accountants that protect the family money And do not let them say no for a change. They have to sit for 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, and they have to deeply study the business fundamentals of these frontier technologies. And you can't let them say, no, we're not interested because we're real estate guys. That's the biggest learning that I've had with a couple of family offices that I've worked with that have been very transformative in nature, is that they've forced their big, heavy guns, the guys that really protect family wealth and intergenerational, they forced those guys in to look at the frontier scenarios using their standard analytics models. And they had to come up with at least 2 or 3 recommendations of what interesting things to think about. And I think there's no perfect model, but I thought that that was a specifically effective one.
No, I think you're right, Frederico. I think I would add to that. Obviously, you put your toe in the water. You go in with 1%. Understand it. If you mess up, it's not a big thing. And fine, then you're good. Then take it to 5, and and then you'll find your sweet spot. Each group or each individual or each family office will find what's right for them. But and then as the markets mature, because obviously in 2030 it's going to be very different than it is today. In 2040, we might even what we're kind of thinking is we'll probably be 30% digital currencies by 2030, and probably again maybe 60-70% by 2040. They're just, why? Because we went from mail to email. Why did we go to email? Because we have a network, and so we can send and receive in real time. We went from commerce to e-commerce. So why did we go to e-commerce? We can go online and order it. It comes right to the house. We don't have to get in the car and go. And we're going from money to e-money. Duh. It's not a genius. It doesn't require genius to see that. So,
well, I'd argue that fiat money is just as fake as Bitcoin anyway. It's just sitting in the same mainframe of a different bank. The difference is who controls the mine. But right. if you're telling me that a Bitcoin isn't real, but the US dollar is, you haven't read the Bretton Woods Agreement.
You're completely right, Frederico. That's absolutely the key to it. And the other thing that's great about Bitcoin that is different than any fiat is that it is run by an algorithm. No external person can come in there and say, "Hey, let's print some more Bitcoin." Well, that obviously deflates inflates the currency and deflates the value of your asset. No, one of the T-shirts that you see at a Bitcoin conference is Bitcoin. It's math. It's a transparent, open algorithm that everybody can read and see. So therefore, you can make predictions. You know exactly how many Bitcoins are out there. 18.5 million today. You know exactly how many Bitcoins will be there in 10 years of 21 million Bitcoins. And there's no surprises there. So we've actually got a very predictive currency in that way. And that's very helpful for running econometric modeling. And I know Peter's really been looking at how that kind of capability allows us then to run. That's what AI does. It runs these simulations forward. And so you can actually start to think about it almost like when you put in, I want to drive from Brussels to Amsterdam, and you put it in the GPS and it shows you the way. AI is kind of what they're doing is they're running simulations on possible forward models, and that helps you kind of make decisions on where to place your bets more effectively than just some random guess or hope. So the simulations of near-time futures almost act like a GPS for our investing and our business planning and other kinds of things. So that's a capability we really haven't had at scale before.
And the one thing I would say to bring it back to the Caribbean model is there's a really strong opportunity for what I'd always like to call it the financial innovation centers, to really think about being the first to actually regulate safely those types of currencies and get into a model where it is permissive. But it's like putting brakes on a car. You need to put enough. You don't put brakes on a car to slow down. You put brakes on a car to go faster safely. And there's a real opportunity for Caribbean institutions and Caribbean governments to have a look at having enough of a responsible governance and regulation model to allow this new world digital economies to flourish here first, free from necessarily the rules that have been brought that a Bank of England will take 20 years or 10 years to think through fully. Right. But you could get there first and become innovation centers of excellence by choice, not because you're doing something weird and not because you're doing something that isn't industry standard, but you could move so much quicker than the average major country institution, both from a regulatory and legislative perspective, but then also from being able to implement enough of the regulatory oversight to allow these things to flourish and create economies based on these new digital assets. And that would be my strong advice for the regulator folk on this call.
All right, I hate to stick up in here, but we have been getting signals from the organizers that we need to wrap up now. So I just wanted to thank our presenter and the panelists for just sparking a lot of food for thought in terms of where we're going to go and how quickly we're going to get there, and what the impact, the meaningful impact is going to be on our lives, not just as individuals, but certainly as societies and economies, and being part of a very big global interconnected economy as we go along. So on behalf of the organizers, I'd like to thank the panel again for giving us a lot of food for thought. And I think that there is an opportunity for questions to still be sent. And they can be answered as a follow-up to the conference proceedings. So thanks again, and this brings us to the end of this particular session.